My name is Phoebe Caldwell, and I work with intensive interaction. That basically is a fancy term for using body language to communicate, and it promotes emotional engagement. It bypasses speech difficulties that some people have. I work on the whole with people who have very severe autism, and some of them have severe learning difficulties as well. And I work in intensive interaction is just part of what I do. I'm looking to reduce the triggers that are overloading the brain and to increase the proprioceptive signals, the physical signals they're getting, and the using their body language. So you decrease the signals the brain's having problems with, and you increase the signals that they can process easily. And what's been concerning me in the last 2 or 3 years particularly is that we give people labels like autism and intellectual disability, but we are overlooking the life experiences that a number of them share with us. For example, things like trauma and sensory distortions and pain are being put down. The behavior that is consequence on this is being put down to their autism or their learning disability. And I want just to present 1 or 2 examples of this, of some work which I've done in the last few weeks, actually. And the first is a lady who I was asked to see, and she's about 47. At the age of 3, she was dumped in a big hospital, and she rarely saw her parent again, once or every 2 or 3 years. And at the age of 40, she came out of hospital, and she's now in a very caring home. I was asked to see her because there are a number of difficulties that she experiences in her life. I'm told she has severe learning disability. I'm pretty sure they'd overlooked her autism. The first is that when you go to the house, and they're very caring people who are there, when you go to the house, your bag is taken away from you very rapidly and locked up because she has the habit of burrowing in strangers' bags and removing their credit cards. Now, this is mainly because on the raised little figures and numbers, she likes to use these to lick with her tongue. And in fact, all her repetitive behaviors are orally based. She grinds her teeth, and she plays with her tongue, and she licks her credit cards, your credit cards. My first job, she was very stressed, you could see it in all her behavior and her facial thing. My first job was to try and get her attention because she was living in a sort of retreat behind these oral fixations. And so when she ground her teeth, I did this. I haven't got a radiator here, so I improvised one. Very useful if you want to talk to someone who's grinding their teeth. The bits of road drainage, corrugated. And she immediately looked at me and started laughing. So when she ground her teeth, I would respond, not copying her, but altering the rhythm slightly until we had quite a conversation going. And then she started playing with her tongue, and so I responded to that too. And she became very relaxed and smiling, and that was very happy, and I showed her manager how to do this, and we spent quite a long time interacting with her. But the other difficulty she has was really more traumatic, and that is that when anybody left the house and the door shut, she would run to the front door, and she would press her nose against a glass panel, and she would cry and bellow. And this would go on for up to 2 hours. And anybody who went near her was getting hit. So I said, let's first get her really relaxed and see what can be, before anybody goes out, I want to get her really, really relaxed. And so we did our conversation with the corrugated tube and the radiators and her tongue. And then she became very relaxed, and I said, right, now one of you can go out the front door. And so they did, and she thought about it for a minute or two, and then she went. And she stood by the door, and she started to sort of heave. And I got the manager to stand beside her, and every time she sort of heaved, I got the manager to run her hand very firmly down her spine. And the result was empathy, that I am acknowledging how you feel. And she failed to start crying or screaming. And she went back to her seat in the sitting room, and occasionally she looked out of the window, but she no longer felt that distress. And they thought it might be because they'd been trying for 13 years to get her to relax when people went out of the door. And this was the first time that she had not broken down and become extremely distressed. They thought it might be that she wanted to go out, but telling her or taking her out didn't seem to do anything for her. And it occurred to me that the profundity of her distress was so great that what was actually happening was that every time she heard the door slam, she reenacted her abandonment at the age of 3. Trauma. And trauma was overlooked as a possible source of what was known as challenging behavior. I do not use the term challenging behavior because certainly with autism it is always the result of sensory overload. It's distressed behavior. And so I won't use the term challenging behavior. It makes it difficult for us to look at why is this person so distressed. Well, that was trauma. A number of the people that I work with now have sensory distortions of one kind or another. And again, we've got something which is being overlooked because they're autistic or because they have learning difficulties. And one of these is the problem of visual distortions. And this work, of course, has come from the work with people with dyslexia. But a young man who was 16, and I noticed that he screwed up his eyes when he looked out of the window. And I sent him for a colorimetric test, and he came back with blue lenses. Now, he was in the slow lane of his special school. He emailed me, this man who could neither read nor write, young man. The following month, he emailed me, and he said, Phoebe, you have absolutely no idea what difference these glasses have made to my life. I have been moved from the slow lane to the talented stream, and subsequently he has had to be moved to a special school for brilliant children. This physical disability was met with a physical physical response, which showed that in fact this child was trapped in a very low stream when he's actually quite brilliant and will certainly be at university and helping us all to understand the world of autism a bit better.